Rodney, happy Tuesday. How are you? Whoop. Rodney, are you there?
I'm here. I can hear you.
There we go.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Hang on. Did you have a good, was the 4th of July? Did you have a good 4th?
It was. It was great. Got some family time in, got some golf in. It's hot. Spent the evenings inside.
Yeah, that was, I don't think I haven't seen it this hot since, it's been a long time. Crazy
Yeah,
hot.
we lost our spring. It went straight into summer.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Went winter hot. Oh God. So, what I thought, what Rodney and I thought we'd talk to you guys today about is real estate still a good investment? And what I've done is we've each pulled up some articles and want to have a conversation on that. If you have questions, pop them in. If you're watching on replay, ask your questions so we can answer those after the fact anyway, as well. So we'd love to be able to do that. So some of the things that I'd like to cover, and remember the thing for Tuesdays is Rodney's the money guy. I am not, and I'm not an idiot, but I'm not smart like he is, and that's what these Tuesday things are all about. They're called dollars and cents. And so some of the things I thought we'd cover would be, we've got inflation. What is that doing? The interest rates. What is that doing? Certainly the home prices are still going up. What is that doing? And it's going to make people ask. And I've got a Reddit thread here for anybody who's familiar with Reddit. Their question was, is it a good time to buy real estate? And that's where this came from, really. Because it's a fair question, wouldn't you say, Rodney?
It is. It's 100%. It's a great question.
So here's what I'd like to kind of start with. This is a new setup for us here. Good, there we are. Might have to scooch in there a little bit, Rodney. Let me see if I can't fix you. Hang on.
Feel like I'm on top of the world.
Hang on. Let me kind of get this in here. Sorry, folks, we're taking a minute. Yeah, there we go. All right. So the first thing I wanted to read was this, and this may be a little bit hard for you to read, but I'm going to read it out loud. This was a Reddit post. A Reddit post. I'm going to put on focus, do not disturb. Okay. This is a Reddit post that said, and it was in the real estate section, if anybody's familiar with Reddit. And here's what this guy says, just a regular person. And he's got 580 upvotes, which means people are seeing this and reading this as positive. It says, please don't give up in your home search. I bought my house a month before the last big crash. So he did it a while ago, showing his history. Rates were high as today and my value plunged. And it said 15 years later, and my value has doubled. My mortgage balance is low. My equity is high. I bought at one of the worst times in history of housing, and it's still paid off for me. I know this is tough and I know it's frustrating, but I promise to you, in 10 years, you'll be happy that you bought a house. Maybe that's a little long. It doesn't even need to be 10 years, right, Rodney? Would you say?
I wouldn't think so, but stories are like endless like this, when you buy, and then especially when he's talking about, 15 years later, right? I mean,
yeah,
you could buy a house, theoretically. I've only seen it in one market, but you could buy a house theoretically. We've only seen one declining market, and that was what, 08?
right.
So before, other than that year, your real estate has appreciated.
And that's what he's trying, because what he was responding to for all the other posts that people were they were kind of fretting and worrying. In this kind of a market, that's a natural state where somebody's going to worry about dropping serious money, you know, they're and to have it go bad. I mean, that's completely natural, which is going to bring me to another topic in a minute. Anyway, so to finish this up, there's a few things that I wanted to add. The equity you get in your house comes from two sources, goes through that. Won't read it all. But he also says, and I thought this was pretty good, buying a home is not for everyone. It's not for every situation. And I've advised people not to buy, meaning I don't think he's an agent, but he's saying it's just not for everybody, which I think is wise. But there was a response to this that read this way. It says, this is excellent big picture thinking in the middle of a tough situation, which is the last couple of years certainly qualify. It's nearly impossible to see clearly what's been described, meaning if you buy a house, you're going to be okay. And it says that I applaud this post because it injects some hope and positivity in a pretty negative world these days. Thanks, bravo. I thought that was a pretty good response. Does that seem to make sense, Rod?
Yeah, I agree. It's this guy's story, 15 years ago. Yeah, I mean but that it seems. I guess it just seems kind of elementary to me that home ownership is one of the best ways for you to acquire value as in a family or whatever as a person. So yeah, especially holding real estate for 15 years, that's an easy decision. It's just a tough decision when you're making it. Like right now, people are, eggs, bread, gas, food, everything has went up, right? Rates have went up. Home prices have went up. So now they're paying a lot more for that same house that they would have a year ago or 3 years ago or whatever that is. So in that case, you can well, yeah, the house is more expensive, but if you put this purchase off, what's the house price going to look like in 2 years?
Right.
It's going to, our market is still increasing, even though mortgage demand has fallen. Okay, and mortgage demand a lot, right, has fallen because one, inflation's so high, rates are so high, pretty much all the refinances are gone. So
Is
that
that
drops
right?
the application. Yes, there's still refinances. People still need to refinance, but they're few and far between. Most people took care of that with their investments, their properties, investment properties, the last several years. So nobody's trying to refinance right now at 6% unless they have to.
Right.
Um,
And I saw an
Other than
article.
that, yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I saw an article earlier, and I think that I got it for where we can see it, where it mentions again about ARMs would be a good option in this particular market, which, like you said, it's not for everybody and it's not for every market, but sometimes the time is right, for that kind of a thing. Let me show you another article that I got and see if, and it says how an investment in real estate can benefit during the high inflation. Now, what is the state of inflation these days? I know that comes out, what, quarterly, or how often does that come out, inflation rates?
I don't know. I know we're in it. Everything that everything that I'm buying is costing more. So it's definitely we're experiencing it for sure.
Yeah. Well, it says because inflation reached its highest in 40 years recently, it's more important to ever understand the financial benefits of home ownership. And that's what you're talking about, because when you buy a house, if that's fixed, everything else is going up in price, but your mortgage stays the same, assuming, well, even in ARM for a number of years, right?
Right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you
Yep.
can if you're choosing an arm. Hopefully you're not choosing an arm because you can afford the payment now, right? You're choosing
Hmm.
an arm because it fits your financial scenario versus it makes a home affordable for you.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Right.
that's kind of the danger of the arm. But outside of that, arms are a good product if you're a savvy buyer, if you know how to handle it. But the biggest thing right now, and I see it in this in your article here, is we haven't talked about is the ridiculous rent across this country. What they are charging for rent makes homeownership look like the best thing since sliced bread. I mean, this is ridiculous what these people are charging, and they're going up at a crazy rate too. It's not like somebody's telling us last time they was looking for an apartment, and I think it was $800, and then customer she said the apartment she looked at like a year and a half, 2 years ago was $800, and now it's like 2,400.
Oh, geez, really?
Yeah, same apartment. And it was even outside of our metropolitan area here too. So it's like, goodness gracious, what are these things doing? So you're at the mercy of your landlord if you don't have something fixed in a way of a mortgage payment.
Well, I remember when I was renting a number of years ago, that every spring, because that happened to be my renewal, I was waiting for that letter, and they'd say, "Hey, if you want to stay, it's going to cost you X number of dollars more." You know,
Yeah, yeah, and over the last few years, it's really gotten nasty. So it's just when there's a high demand for the area, this is what takes place. It's
mm-hmm.
if you're in an area that's high demand, which a lot of major cities are, your rents are going ridiculous. Yeah, buying, even though rates are high, you could buy this right now and say rates are high for 4 years, 5 years. You can always refinance it then, especially, and probably take it to a lower term and keep your payment the same or similar. That's what you need to focus on doing, or somebody that's looking to purchase.
Yeah,
Don't wait. Don't wait.
yeah, it makes total sense to me. Um, of course, they talk about real estate being an inflation hedge, since there's always going to be demand for homes, that's an interesting point. If you were going to buy something, it's pretty good to buy something that people are always going to need. It's a little bit like a food, I suppose, but there's always going to be a demand for homes. Um, I mean, if anybody wants to, they can read that articles on keeping current matters, I think. But that's what that thing looks like. And this is just this is basically an infograph of what we just read. And despite the hard that it's challenging times, but in the midst of it, real estate, according to all the polls that you're going to see, people see real estate as the best investment. So we're not out to try to convince anybody of anything, but
Yeah, and it's easy for us to throw up a real estate investment chart right now after we've seen the highest appreciation over the last few years that it ever has that we've seen.
mm-hmm.
So but it's always still a phenomenal investment. Whether now, if we had some stock professionals, the day traders and things like that, they may argue that if they take that money and invest it, they can do better than the appreciation of your house. But you can't live in an investment. You actually get to live in this house and get away from the rent side as you own a house. So, that would be more comparing, stocks and bonds to an investment. It more along the line of an investment property. I think, for me, you should own a primary residence and get away from the rent. But, and then you'd have, it's asset and all that other things too.
And one of the things that I've seen taught a lot is, if you're trying to make money in real estate, and that's not necessarily what we're talking about, but if you buy a house that needs work and you can live in it for 2 years and fix it up as you go, meaning be reasonable with it, don't use credit to do the repairs, I would expect, probably, and then look into selling that and get the profit in a couple of years. That's a reasonable way to do things, isn't it?
It is. There's an article in here where one of the reasons they call it force appreciation. You can force appreciation by doing repairs and things like that to your home that add value.
You
And
want to
of
show us
course,
that? You want me to pull that article up now?
yeah, yeah.
There you go. Okay. You got
So,
control.
so if you're going down, in this slide a little bit, here you get your you can force appreciation stuff right there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it gives you an advantage. A investment property or a primary residence, a real estate, whatever it is. You can do this with your real estate versus a different type of investment.
Right.
Get some tax benefits. You can leverage. You can leverage your investment, like it talks about up here. Meaning you could potentially go and put a HELOC on that property and go buy another property if you wanted, right? If you wanted to take out some of your cash, your appreciation.
Right.
Um,
Was there an article that you were wanting to show us a little bit ago there? What was that one?
let's
The
see
Moody
here.
guy?
Yeah, this is just one of my things that I always, if you read this headline, Andy, housing correction is dead ahead. Chief economist, and you scroll down, and basically says, you read the headline, right? And it's acting like there's a situation coming. But if you read the article, it clearly says, basically you need to buy. Real estate's still a great investment. They bring up a point right here that says first time home buyers locked out, and I've seen that. It's that has definitely been a challenge for first time home buyers. With the rising rates and the rising home prices, the first time home buyers were definitely sidelined a little bit. It was hard for them to compete for offers. It was just, prices were going up pretty fast. So it was that right there, the first time home buyer, with buyer frustration, we ended up kind of calling it buyer fatigue. It just seemed like they were always getting, Andy, we had several clients together that was
Just getting tired, getting burnt out.
Yeah, looking for property, putting multiple offers in, losing them, and they've been kind of locked out. So hopefully, the new market, the increase in inventory will help the
Yeah.
first-time home buyer start getting some contracts accepted.
Yeah. Let's see what's going on here. Here we go. There we
But
go.
my thing about this article is so funny is that it's housing correction is dead ahead, and it's just everybody always tries to use the negative headlines to get stuff, but
Well,
it's really not a negative article.
the definition of a correction is within 10% of price values from the year before. Lower, isn't that correct? That's the definition I read this morning, and if it goes further than that, then it's termed a crash. I don't think we're looking at that, but that when they talk about correction, that, like you just said, it's not a negative thing necessarily.
Yeah, our correction is who's buying versus now versus they're getting to make some choices now, which is nice. The buyers are.
Absolutely. And they're getting, I want to show you something else too. This is pretty good. How quickly the tables have turned, fallen mortgage rates have home buyers so emboldened they're asking sellers for the cash. You were talking about that last week.
Yes.
And
it is,
Well, and the point that I wanted to make on this was, what was it, like a month ago? Buyers were just at the mercy of sellers. Just whatever the sellers wanted, the buyers either paid it or capitulated or they were out. That was just the way it was. And then everything started to change in this last few weeks. But what struck me as interesting was that falling mortgage rates. Well, that's fallen to 4.8. So I mean, we go from, oh my God, it's 4.5. I can't. It's terrible. To it hits 5 and 4.8 looks good. That's my whole point. Is we sort of float around between tragedy and triumph with those rates. Do you see that way?
Yeah, not so much as it, like this article's talking about, but yes, I do get exactly what you're saying. It's rates are, when you're buying, you're buying at a time where you just need to shop and get the best rates you can. But if you say I'm buying in, you know, February to June of 2023, you're going to hit a graph of rates that February to June, and you've got to choose that best time to lock in, right? To lock in your rate.
Say that
So,
again. Say that again.
like if you're buying, and your window is from today till August 1st of this year.
Okay. All right.
At some point in time between now and the day you close, you have to choose a rate that the lender's
Okay.
offering you.
All
It
right.
can be as soon as you get. So it's almost like it don't really matter what the rates are when you buy. They're going to be in this range of whatever the rates are at that time, and then if you just have to manage that money later on in life. Like if it gets better in 5 years, refinance it. If it never gets better, don't refinance it. Rates to me are not, unless they get up above 6%, and I don't think it's going to slow the housing purchase market down.
Right.
We're
Right.
getting close.
Well, but I think people were shocked. At least the people that in the news and the financial news, they were a little bit surprised that mortgage rates have started to dip down. At
Well, that
all.
yeah, that lasted for a week.
Is that
They're
right?
already yeah, they're already ticking back up. So
Is, and
yeah, but
is that normal? Is that normal?
yeah, there is nothing normal right now.
Bad
I, you
question.
know, I've gotten the business in '98, and I haven't. This is one of the highest times I've ever seen for sure, and it's risen faster than any time ever. I mean, it went from crazy great rates to high rates in a matter of, it seemed like to me, a matter of weeks.
Yeah, but it's still. I think that the story, and I've been through this enough. What, in 16 years that I've watched, and I don't mean this to be a rates discussion, but the point on that is that's what people think about most.
Hmm.
But during the course of the working with buyers over 16 years and watching rates come and go and having conversations with buyers on that one article that talked about it, it dropped down, what, 20 basis points? Is that 0.2%? Is that
Right.
how that works?
Yeah.
Well, everybody was like, hey, let's go buy something.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
we're back on track. And I guess what I'm saying is, uh, uh, it's easy to see people be disappointed, like you were talking about, but that's going to change. When you bring up um, the frustration of putting in offers and not getting a house, those days, I'm not going to say they're gone, but they're much less than they used to be.
Right.
Multiple offers aren't as nearly as common. Houses are sitting on the market. Like you said, buyers have way more choices now, and they get to actually say, I'm moving on. I'm not picking that house. They're not picking houses just because it's available.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know. And, all of a sudden, if you get to choose the house that you want for X amount of dollars, regardless of the rate, I think it turns into a better value proposition because then you're getting, I really like this house, then it's worth it versus having to overbid for a house just to have a roof
Right.
isn't awesome.
Yeah. They have, buyers have settled, buyers have settled, on, they have given up negotiations. They have given up, um,
Inspections.
everything. Yes, yeah, you've been writing all those contracts. They've given up everything in order just to get the contract. So, yeah, it's about time the buyers get a little win here. Is that they get to choose something they like, they get to think about it for a minute, and work a transaction normally and make a decision normally instead of, well, if I don't buy right now, somebody else is. So,
Yeah, yeah. And that creates, in my experience, anybody that's pushed into a corner, and myself included, that generally leads to bad decisions.
and yeah, bad decisions and overpaying. I'm competitive with stuff, so it'd be like if I'm in there buying a Coca Cola or something, a drink, and somebody's like, "Well, I'll give you $1.50." I'm like, "Well, I'm going to give you two for it," and then I'm overpaid for it, right? I mean, just because the shipment's low, right? I mean, it's no
Yeah.
different.
And it's just like that article said that now, buyers are learning they can ask the seller for stuff. And I'm not beating up on sellers, but you know what? Sellers have been riding the gravy train for quite a while, and if they're asked to pay title or a couple of dollars in closing costs or whatever, so be it. But um, it's interesting that buyers are getting emboldened to do that. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. I mean, what is a seller supposed to do? I mean, I wish I had 100 houses that I could have put on the market and just said, turn it into a bidding war and a frenzy over them all. I mean, if sellers did what they were supposed to do, they got the most money for it. I mean,
absolutely.
yeah. I mean, I wish I had some to sell.
Yeah, well, you do well with it. That's for darn sure. Um, so I think that the point of our discussion today, and I've enjoyed this a lot, is that absolutely real estate's a good investment. I'm not trying to sell anybody on the idea, but based on just the question, is real estate a good investment? It's like you said, based on time, it still is, even with the weird times we're in, right?
100%. Yeah, rates are higher, inflation's a little bit higher. The only thing I'd add to that is that as long as your job is still steady and your finances are good, buying a house will be one of the better things you can do, in my
Well,
opinion.
yeah, and you know what? You bring up a good point. With all the things that are going on, you got to make sure that your life is settled. The job's solid, and there's been a lot of stuff going on. So you're right about that. So that kind of brings us to the end of our half hour. But it was Rodney. I can't thank you enough for walking us through this, and it just brings me back to that Reddit post that we started with in the beginning. That um, what the guy was talking about was history, and for people that are questioning whether they should do something, that'd be a pretty good article to read because he's saying, based on his history, he's had a good time of it. That's pretty good advice, really.
Yeah, that was a great article. I'm glad you shared that with us today because honestly, you look at that and a lot of people, if anybody sees this thinking about buying and reads that guy's article, and one thing that he's avoided, which he probably didn't know he was avoiding, was this crazy rent schedule over the last 10 to 15. He has not paid rent in 15 years. So look at what he was renting 15 years ago. And then now he hasn't had to deal with this market. And where are we going to be in another 15 years, Andy, with this thing? A rent's going to be 5,000 a month for a run of the mill apartment. I mean, who knows?
Who knows? Well, and it's when you talk about that, it's sort of the landlords, and it's just a shot. It's like you said, they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're trying to maximize their profit. But the landlords are doing a little bit what the sellers were doing for the last couple of years, is taking advantage of a good situation for
Right.
them. Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
But
Yeah.
but like you said, high rent is going to motivate anybody to get out of that.
It's this is the first time in my history that if you were naming one of the top reasons to buy a home outside of building equity, that avoiding rent would have been on that list, because we've always had reasonable rent in our area.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you could go out, you didn't have to live in the major city, right? You could go out and find a place to live pretty cheap.
Yeah.
You can't find those anymore. I mean, it's good. It's crazy. It's high.
And now you'd have to drive 15 miles out of town probably to find
Yeah.
some kind of a deal, you know? I don't even know if that exists. Anyway, so that was a good article on the correction. I have to get those numbers squared away. I'm pretty sure it's 10%. But anyway, Rodney, listen, have a great week, and we'll see you next week, Tuesday. And I was thinking about, for a topic, maybe what first-time home buyers should do to get ready to buy, something like that. I don't know. We'll have to talk about it more. Just a
Yeah, it'd
thought.
be a great topic. Yeah, first time home buyers have had it hard, so that's
Yeah,
probably a great topic.
maybe we can help them get their ducks in a row for the
Sure
upcoming
thing.
season. Rodney, hey, thanks a lot, buddy.
Hey, enjoy them, man. Good to see you, buddy.
See you. Take care.